Motive in the murder of a Seabrook mother in front of her children.
As police continue the search for the suspect, we're learning they believe he killed the victim to avenge his brother's murder.
In the quiet town of Seabrook, Texas, 23-year-old Mary Jane Collins worked tirelessly to create a better life for her two young sons. Day after day, she juggled long hours at a local diner and late-night shifts at the convenience store, all while striving to give her boys a safe and loving home. She was a devoted mother, calm, patient, and fiercely protective. But beneath the surface, her life was slowly unraveling. Tension and doubt had started to creep in, tangled in a web of manipulation, betrayal, and shadows of revenge that had been carefully set into motion. Mary Jane thought she had finally found someone who could bring stability to her family, someone who would lift the weight off her shoulders and provide the peace she longed for. Dawayland Hurst had appeared seemingly out of nowhere, charming, confident, and easy to talk to. At first, he seemed like a godsend, someone who admired her strength and made her feel seen in a way no one had before. But little did she know, Dawayland was not the man he seemed to be. Beneath his smooth words and calculated smile, he harbored darker intentions, plans that would soon threaten to destroy everything she had built. What started as a chance encounter quickly became something far more dangerous. Dawayland weaved himself into every corner of Mary Jane's life, charming his way into her heart and drawing her closer. Little by little, he fed her with false promises of security, whispers of a future where they would have enough money to give her sons everything they needed. He spoke of love and stability, making her believe that she had finally found someone who truly cared for her. But behind his warm exterior, Dawayland was playing a game, a calculated plot, years in the making, designed to manipulate and control her. At first, Mary Jane couldn't see through his mask. Dawayland seemed genuine, kind, attentive, and patient. But soon, cracks began to show. Small moments of doubt started creeping into her thoughts. His stories didn't always add up, and sometimes he would disappear for hours at a time without explanation. Still, she tried to brush it off, believing that she was just being paranoid. She clung to the hope that he really cared, that he was the stability she had been searching for. But Dawayland wasn't there to save her. He had no intention of building a life together with her. His attraction to Mary Jane was not born out of affection. It was something darker, something twisted. He saw her as a means to an end, a pawn in a long-standing game of revenge. Over time, he began planting seeds of mistrust between her and those she loved, whispering half-truths to her family, making her feel isolated from friends who once supported her. Slowly, he turned her world upside down, until she began to question her own reality. Mary Jane Collins was more than just a mother. She was determined, hardworking, and devoted to giving her children the best life possible. Living in a modest apartment in the Teakwood complex, she surrounded herself with the simple joys of parenthood. Children's drawings on the fridge, toys neatly stored, and photos of her son's milestones proudly displayed on the walls. Despite the challenges of young motherhood, Mary Jane was resilient, working long hours to ensure her boys never felt the weight of their circumstances. Her weekends were spent at her grandmother's house, where her boys played in the yard, and she shared her dreams of going back to school and creating a stable life for her family. Her life seemed to be filled with hope, until one day, a chance encounter at a convenience store changed everything. It all started in June 2024, when Dawayland Hurst first approached Mary Jane at a local store. What seemed like an ordinary interaction was far from accidental. Hurst had been watching her for weeks, studying her habits, learning her routines, and most importantly, discovering her connection to Michael King, the father of her oldest son. From that moment, Hurst began inserting himself into Mary Jane's life. He showed up coincidentally at places she frequented, always nearby, always creating opportunities for further interaction. At first, His attentiveness seemed kind. He offered to help with her children, prepared meals, and spent time with her sons. He even supported her co-parenting relationship with Michael King, though his true feelings simmered beneath the surface. Friends around Mary Jane began noticing subtle changes. Her regular social outings with friends became rare. Her usual posts on social media grew quiet. And when she did speak to friends, she would make vague excuses, claiming she had simply been busy or overwhelmed. But her closest friends knew something wasn't right. Mary Jane's behavior began to shift. She canceled coffee dates with friends, stopped sharing her daily life online, and began wearing long sleeves, even in the hot Texas heat. Friends noticed strange bruises on her arms, her back, and eventually, even a bite mark on her face. Each time she sent a photo, she'd follow it up with messages, asking not to worry or tell anyone. Her explanations were always the same. An accident here, a simple slip there. But those who cared about her began to see through the lies. They noticed how she would flinch whenever Hurst called, how she kept her phone hidden, and how she spoke in hurried whispers during calls. Always cautious, always afraid. By September 2024, the abuse had escalated beyond bruises. Mary Jane confided in her friends, although in secret. She told them about the threats Hurst made against her children, warning that if she spoke out, he would hurt them. She showed photos of scratches across her back, swollen eyes, and deep bruises, each image a silent cry for help. Yet, even with the growing fear, she refused to call the police, believing perhaps that she could handle it alone. The final pieces of the puzzle came in a chilling video call, a moment that revealed the true nature of Hurst's plan. In that call, Hurst was taunting someone, a prison inmate. The sound of a child crying echoed in the background. It was then that everything became clear. Mary Jane wasn't just a victim of domestic violence. She was caught in a carefully crafted plot of revenge, one that had been brewing for years. The man who had once appeared so caring, so willing to bring stability into Mary Jane Collins' life, had chosen her not by chance, but by design. There was a purpose behind his seemingly innocent attention, a reason tied deeply to her past, one neither she nor her loved ones could have anticipated. This man, Dawayland Hurst, had a connection to Mary Jane's life that ran far deeper than anyone knew. It all began with Michael King, the father of Mary Jane's two young sons. 4 years earlier, in a moment of desperation and violence, Michael had been responsible for taking the life of another man, Dijon Triplett. What seemed like a tragic and isolated event had ripples that reached far beyond the confines of the small town of Seabrook. And Dawayland Hurst's presence in Mary Jane's life was no accident. His connection to her had everything to do with that crime, a crime that neither Mary Jane nor anyone around her could have foreseen would come back to haunt her. As Mary Jane grew closer to Dawayland, her heart filled with hope that she had finally found someone who could protect and care for her. But the man she had welcomed into her home and heart was far from the loving partner he pretended to be. Slowly, the facade began to crack. The truth about Dawayland Hurst slowly emerged. He wasn't just a charming boyfriend. He was someone with a dark, sinister link to her past, one she couldn't have imagined in her worst nightmares. It came to light that Dawayland Hurst was more than just a man with a troubled past. He was the half-brother of Dijon Triplett, the man Michael King had killed in 2020. It wasn't a coincidence that Dawayland had entered Mary Jane's life. His interest in her had always been laced with something far more malicious. Years of resentment and bitterness. A simmering desire for revenge against the family of the man who had taken his brother from him. At first, Mary Jane dismissed the warnings from those who began to piece things together. She couldn't fathom that someone she had trusted so deeply had been plotting against her all along. But as the truth unraveled, It became clear that Dawayland's every move, his sweet words, and his promises of stability were all carefully calculated. His kindness had always been a mask, a way to gain her trust and gain access to the very people he had vowed to destroy. Hurst had carefully plotted his actions over several months. He spent time researching Mary Jane, learning about her daily routines, her struggles as a single mother, and her connection to Michael King. While Mary Jane was focused on maintaining a peaceful co-parenting relationship with King, Hurst quietly plotted his revenge. He used his chance meeting at a convenience store to initiate a relationship, gaining her trust little by little. Everything about their interaction was part of Hurst's plan. His false interest in her children, his encouragement of video calls from prison, and his ability to blend into her daily life. These were all steps calculated to manipulate Mary Jane and get close to her. The day that changed everything began like any ordinary day at the apartment complex. Mary Jane left early that morning to take her children to school. Later that day, she made several tense phone calls to friends and tried reaching out to family, though many messages were never sent. By 10 a.m., she picked up her children early from school, citing an urgent family emergency. What happened next would haunt those who witnessed it. Between 10:30 and 11 a.m., neighbors heard raised voices from Mary Jane's apartment. Just 15 minutes later, a video call connected from the prison where Michael King was incarcerated. On the other end, Hurst made his intentions clear. As King tried to speak with his son, Hurst moved into the video frame, revealing his true nature. He taunted King with cold, deliberate cruelty, reminding him of the pain he had suffered when his brother died. Mary Jane's desperate screams could be heard in the background as she tried to shield her child. The video call captured the moment Hurst struck King's son, followed by the sound of Mary Jane's agonized scream. The call abruptly ended, leaving behind a chilling image: Mary Jane fighting to protect her child. By 11:30 a.m., neighbors heard what they thought was a gunshot, followed by silence. When police arrived, they found Mary Jane's apartment in disarray, with signs of a struggle everywhere. She had fought fiercely, leaving behind defensive wounds on her hands and arms. The heartbreaking part of this tragedy was that Mary Jane's two young sons witnessed her murder. First responders found them huddled together in a bedroom closet, hiding as their mother fought for her life. The older child had tried to shield his younger brother, repeating the comforting words their mother often told them, that everything will be okay. The investigation that followed revealed the true horror of what had happened. Detectives quickly identified Hurst as the prime suspect, piecing together the connections between him and Michael King. The prison video call became crucial evidence, showing Hurst's violent actions and his deliberate manipulation of the situation. Text messages and social media accounts also provided key pieces of evidence, revealing Hurst's premeditation. He had spent months researching Mary Jane, tracking her routines, and learning about her children. His digital footprint made it clear that his actions were carefully planned, fueled by years of resentment. Investigators later discovered Hurst's DNA scattered throughout her apartment, including under her fingernails, indicating she had fought desperately to survive. Along with physical evidence, they found a series of notebooks Mary Jane had kept. In these notebooks, she carefully documented each instance of abuse, noting dates and describing his actions. It was clear that Mary Jane had reached a breaking point. Yet, despite her efforts to protect herself, Hurst's control continued. He knew her fears, her weaknesses, and where to strike next. The day after her murder, Hurst vanished from Seabrook. A manhunt quickly began, but he had planned his escape carefully. Security cameras showed him leaving the apartment complex on foot, taking winding routes through residential areas to avoid detection. He changed directions often, clearly avoiding main roads where cameras might catch him. He traveled only with cash and never reached out to anyone. No family, no friends. For 3 weeks, he stayed off social media, living in silence as he moved from one location to the next. But Dawayland Hurst's efforts to stay hidden would eventually fail. On the morning of October 28, 2024, a tip led the authorities to a motel in Texas City. They quietly surrounded the building, keeping an eye on his every move. When they finally moved in, Dawayland didn't try to run. His arrest was quick and without any trouble. Inside the motel room, the officers found what they had been searching for. There were fake identification documents scattered on the table, and a large sum of cash neatly stacked in a corner. But the most shocking discovery was his phone, hidden beneath the bed. It wasn't locked, and as they turned it on, they found dozens of videos, clear, detailed recordings of Mary Jane Collins with her 2 young sons. Every moment had been captured: bedtime routines, trips to the park, and quiet moments at home. It was obvious that Dawayland had been obsessing over her, watching her every move from afar, hidden in the shadows. The phone revealed more than just recordings. There were messages too, cryptic notes filled with threats and dark hints. He had written about revenge, about how he would make those responsible pay. These weren't random actions. This was part of a carefully planned scheme. As the officers closed in on him, Dawayland's eyes met theirs. His face was cold, his voice steady as he spoke. "Is King hurting yet?" he asked, referring to Michael King, the father of Mary Jane's children. His words showed that this wasn't just about Mary Jane. It was about something deeper, something personal. Dawayland wasn't interested in love or stability. He had been driven by years of resentment and a need for revenge. The arrest marked the beginning of a painful chapter for Mary Jane's family. Her murder left deep scars on her loved ones, especially her 2 young sons. Their grandmother, Mary Jane's mother, took on the responsibility of raising them. In her home, the boys found some safety, but their wounds were still fresh. The older son struggled deeply with anxiety, refusing to join any video calls, even with trusted family members. He would often hide his face or curl into himself during interactions. The younger boy, on the other hand, developed attachment issues and panicked whenever his grandmother left his side. The trauma they experienced after losing their mother was overwhelming. Both boys needed specialized counseling to help them process their grief and heal. Their grandmother noticed how the boys would often sleep together in the same bed, with the older son still acting as a protector for the younger. It was heartbreaking to see the weight of such sorrow on their young shoulders. Mary Jane's family worked hard to create stability for them. They set up a trust fund for the boys' future education, turning their grief into a mission to give them hope. Teachers at school played a key role too, working closely with the family to create a safe and supportive environment where the boys could feel understood. The murder of Mary Jane Collins revealed just how deep and far-reaching the impact of domestic violence can be. Revenge-driven acts, like Hurst's, don't just affect the person targeted. Innocent lives are pulled into the wake, creating lasting pain. Mary Jane's death also exposed critical gaps in how society protects victims of abuse, particularly single parents. Most importantly, Mary Jane's story demonstrated how past violence often creates new cycles of pain. Hurst's revenge, born from his brother's murder, led to more devastation. The 2 young boys now caught in a painful web of grief and uncertainty. Local advocacy groups stepped up, developing new programs aimed at breaking these cycles of retaliatory violence and supporting children who witness domestic abuse. As of early 2025, Dawayland Hurst is in custody, awaiting trial. He faces charges of first-degree murder, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and child endangerment. His decision to harm Mary Jane's children during the video call led to additional charges, ensuring that he will face the full weight of justice. The two boys now live permanently with their grandmother, who has full custody. With the support of extended family, they continue their healing journey through trauma therapy, slowly rebuilding a sense of security. In the wake of Mary Jane's murder, communities and law enforcement have taken action. Changes have been made in how domestic violence cases are handled, especially those involving single parents. New protocols help officers recognize relationships based on revenge and provide better protection for vulnerable families. The case also led to improvements in prison communication systems, ensuring that victims and their families are not re-traumatized by exchanges that can be easily manipulated. Mary Jane's story serves as a powerful reminder of the dangers that domestic violence can pose. It sheds light on the urgent need for stronger protections for single parents, better communication safeguards, and community support systems. Through tragedy, her legacy inspires efforts to prevent future pain and build a safer world for vulnerable families. Thank you for watching our video. Share your thoughts with us in the comment section, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember to hit the notification bell for more videos.